Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Collapse Survivor Lessons Learned podcast. I am James Walton, the VP of Marketing for Collapse Survivor and the head of the Prepper Broadcasting Network. This was our 11th simulation scenario covering the threats of artificial intelligence and how people around the world decide that they're not going to let big corporations and companies develop and promote AI that would allow it to kill most of humanity.
And I'm Larry. I'm the Chief Intelligence Officer for the Collapse Survivor app.
We're going to briefly highlight why artificial intelligence is such a serious threat, probably the worst technology mankind has developed, and one that, even worse than nuclear weapons, bioengineering, is probably going to kill off most of mankind and possibly destroy the planet as well, if it's allowed to. We'll cover what happened during the 6-day simulation, explaining how anti-AI groups brought on massive protests, and we're going to review some survival lessons learned during the training simulation. The Age of Collapse video is basically centered around artificial intelligence and is a massive, likely existential threat. This is a briefing that Collapse Survivor put out that explains how and why we have entered the age of collapse, an era where mankind will suffer severe disasters that will kill off millions or billions of people because of new technologies and threats. Our fragile, independent economic system, irresponsible government, and a population that is increasingly dependent and unable to survive without long-distance water and food shipments. The worst threat item covered in the age of collapse is artificial intelligence. So on our planet, there's been about 15 mass extinction events. 5 of these events eliminated more than half of all species inhabiting Earth. Yellowstone or other supervolcanoes could erupt. An asteroid strike could cause a mass extinction event. But it's the man-made threats and new technologies that are rapidly increasing the likelihood / inevitability of huge disasters that lead to a collapse. Our economy not functioning and widespread, long-lasting loss of law and order as desperate people starve to death. Bioengineering today allows a single individual the ability to create a virus that could exterminate most people, or plant a virus to destroy crops, cause famine. When our fragile electric grid goes down, something that a terrorist group, a tiny nuclear power like North Korea could do, most Americans will die.
So artificial intelligence has raised that likelihood and severity of existing collapse threats. And we're a very creative species, so they're inventing new ones all the time. So artificial intelligence is being used to develop new medicines, which can be misused by bad people. At the same time, we can do good things with artificial intelligence. But when I follow up with that, we can develop more deadly viruses, quicker ways to enrich uranium for misuse, new poisons, novel ways to kill a large number of people. So when the first collapse hits, most businesses are going to likely be destroyed, as well as a large part of humanity with that collapse. And we're going to go through several slides. And if you choose to, you want to look at them more closely, hit the pause button if you want to study them with more depth.
The destructive power of individuals continues to skyrocket, whether it's developing and releasing a deadly virus that kills billions, executing a cyber attack that takes down the electric grid, or a rapidly, seemingly endless growing list of new ways to kill people and trigger a collapse. Individuals increasingly have unprecedented power to cause destruction and damage that took a large group or a nation state in the past. A terrorist or nation state or one dedicated individual can take existing technology like CRISPR, which you can buy used for just a few $1,000s, and design a new virus or modify an existing deadly virus to more effectively kill humans.
So every new existing technology can be made more lethal by bad people employing artificial intelligence to basically develop more efficient means of killing people and also escaping the countermeasures that might be out there looking for something like that. So long before AI and robots reach a stage of artificial general intelligence, uh, where the AI systems actually develop basically a sense of self-preservation instinct. AI will be used by bad people to kill off millions or maybe a large part of humanity. Definitely to do bad things, though. But I want to remind people too, there's a double-edged sword to this. AI does some good things. Cybersecurity people use it to fight against black hatters, new medicines to save lives. But to follow up with that, artificial intelligence can be used for very nefarious means. So in this future collapse threat, which is actually a current collapse threat, you can be confident that Iran, North Korea, Russia, China, Al Qaeda, and many others are trying to use AI to develop a better means of mass destruction. And as mentioned by James just a second ago, you've got CRISPR and AI to develop a better virus to kill millions or maybe even billions of people on the planet. AI will find an easier way uh, to kill people faster, do it faster, and at the same time, maybe avoid detection uh, from the good guys trying to figure out who's trying to do something that's bad. Uh, Many examples for that, even in social media with fake news and things like that, where it's going to be more difficult because of artificial intelligence to detect something that's not accurate. So the AI pursued strategies and tactics that in 1,000 years that human beings have never come up with ways to do things. It just tends to make our thinking and creative processes more superior. So with that threat, that current threat of AI, you see very rich people and CEOs building private security bunkers, not just in the US, but also in New Zealand and other countries. And the popular view of AI is wrong, however. Uh, it's not really a risk of the AGI or the artificial general intelligence uh, and bad computers and robots and things that were in the future. It's that current threat that we see now. Bad guys are definitely trying to use AI to develop a better means of mass destruction. So, can it get worse? Sorry to hit you with the negative waves, but add in the quantum computers and the increased power of AI, and yes, it can definitely become more effective and get worse uh, in destroying life on the planet.
And if you want more information, you should check out The Age of Collapse, which is available on our website, collapsesurvivor.com, where you can also get the app if you haven't downloaded it yet. And you can also watch it on YouTube as well. So look for Age of Collapse on YouTube. This simulation, number 11, started out with, well, began with a real life anti AI group known as Pause AI. They exist in the world today. And they call for worldwide protests against AI since our government basically stopped regulating AI at all. And what happened was that many other big groups quickly joined the effort, and it became sort of a massive worldwide movement. The name of the movement quickly got changed from Pause AI to Wipe Out AI, and sort of their motto being "Wipe out artificial intelligence before it wipes us out." Fundamentally, uh, the movement in the simulation, the movement grows tremendous support. It starts to get violent. Um, we start to see varying things start to happen and a focus on why this is such a threat. Um, has to do with the loss of jobs. We see the societal unrest continue, um, and AI can and will be used to make all existing means of killing people far more lethal and find better and easier ways to make deadly weapons.
So, looking at AI, you take all these existing weapons of mass destruction and you can make them more lethal. You can also develop novel ways and new ways to kill people. We seem to be very good at that as a human species. And as mentioned by James, it's worse than nuclear weapons or poisonous gas and things like that we've seen in the past.
So another aspect of the simulation, we start to see the term Luddite, and I don't know if you know the history of Luddite or Luddites, but essentially Luddites was a name given to British hand loom weavers who opposed the industrial machine powered looms in the early 1800s. But AI is not just a new means of improving economic production; it's a means to kill people, and possibly wipe out our entire species and perhaps the planet. The best analogy I can come up with is that AI is like letting anyone who wants to detonate a nuclear weapon or release poisonous gases all the information they need to do it and execute it. And this is no exaggeration.
So here again, we see both sides of the A where we can do bad things. But at the end, as mentioned just a second ago, we can make it worse with artificial intelligence.
So, India was the first country to pass legislation in the simulation banning all forms of AI. The AI industry naturally condemned them, uh, but India was opposing AI because they were trying to protect jobs of the millions of computer programmers and intelligence people all through India. The job losses AI threatens were a major reason for the support of the Wipeout AI movement, and in real time, AI threatens to wipe out jobs in all sectors now. It's not just a data driven or computer driven job sector that could be eliminated by AI.
Yeah, job loss could definitely lead to an economic collapse, which then we see violence, which then goes right into maybe a total collapse. And when that happens, you're looking at many people all at once. They've lost their jobs, they're fired. Uh, we've taken away their means of supporting their families. That is a huge uh, amount of pressure on a family. And if you do this on a massive scale with artificial intelligence, you should expect that people will fight back. And this is what we saw in the simulation.
And as you can imagine, a giant worldwide protest like this, the Wipeout AI movement started peacefully, carried on, got violent, escalated into attacks on major AI companies and CEOs, and in some cases, even pitched battles and gunfights with employees of these large AI companies.
So massive protests, attacks on the companies, especially AI companies. The police were quickly overwhelmed. Their resources stretched thin to begin with, and then, as I just said, they're overwhelmed. There's a general loss of law and order. We've seen this in the past, so it's not something that's unprecedented. When that happens, the gangs very quickly and bad people realize they have an opportunity. So we start to see large scale, big looting uh, because the police won't be able to respond to this and stop them. Uh, that happened in this simulation. And it's definitely a survival lesson learned that you should take away from this and keep in mind uh, for your your work as you try and prepare or to think about how you're going to react to something like this. Again, large scale looting, it's going to break out. Uh, it won't be restricted or limited just to stores. You can easily see this spreading into carjackings and home invasions in nearby neighborhoods where these protests start.
So as Larry mentioned, the Wipeout AI protests moving from peaceful to violent brings out the folks who want to take advantage of the chaos. The looting begins all over the country, uh, into people's homes, into shopping markets, and pretty much creates a collapse here in the United States that tens of millions of Americans are forced to switch into survival mode, and law and order fails, and things just keep getting worse.
So here we have a question. In this simulation, you were asked several times, did you want to bug out? Should I bug out? Uh, that question and those thoughts, that depends on many things, on what your situation, what's your situation that you're in at that moment? What are your preparations prior to the emergency that's occurring? And what are your preferences? Do you want to shelter in place? Do you want to bug out? Uh, there's some basic questions. A lot of times there's this set of four questions. Should I bug out or shelter in place? I try and keep it very simple. We will have a list of those questions in a video that I produced on that. But basically, you're asking yourself, should I shelter in place or bug out? If you can secure your location, you want to shelter in place. You've probably got supplies there. If you decide, oh, I'm going to bug out, then you need to ask yourself very quickly and answer honestly, do I have a place to go? Can I get there safely? Do I have supplies that I can use when I get to my bug out location? So, in another survival uh, question in the simulation for the collapse, uh, that was asked, can you use a cheaper means of communication, short range, very high frequency, or ultra high frequency radios with repeaters? Are they reliable, a reliable form of long range communications? With repeaters today, while everything is operating, you can reach someone way beyond the line of sight, which is normally a limit for uh, short range radios. But the short range line of sight of a very high frequency radio or ultra high frequency radio, uh, they're not good generally for long term or I'm sorry, long range communications, and especially when you're facing a collapse. The repeater stations will likely not have power to them because that's failed. uh, if they've gone to a solar panel, expect that to be stolen by marauder groups that are looking around and they find something like that. So if you have a reliable means of long distance communication in a collapse, your best bet would be a high frequency radio like a ham radio, uh, with operators trained in using those.
So this collapse survivor simulation number 11 was a little atypical because we didn't have one big disaster that led to full on collapse. It was it was a more of a massive civil unrest sort of situation that engulfed much of the United States and the world. There was looting, local and periodic loss of law and order, short-term collapse in some big U.S. cities, but not sort of the end all be all of collapses. The question we wanted to pose is, should people rise up against AI and fight it to try and stop it before it continues to advance to a point where it's too late? Because right now we have really no way to stop what is happening. We have no vote to stop what is happening, and there's really no group that's pushing the issue very hard. So we asked a poll question in the scenario to see sort of where everybody's heads at. Should there be a wipe out AI movement? Is violence against AI companies justified to save the human race and possibly the planet? 50% of exercise participants believe AI can be misused now to kill billions of people, likely to kill most people. And 36% believe will kill millions but not billions, or a serious threat to humanity.
So while the wipeout AI movement succeeded in getting a total prohibition and outlaw of AI in most countries in the world, take a look. Russia, China, Iraq, and North Korea, they refused and just issued lies that they had no dangerous AI programs for anyone to worry about. AI has a tremendous power and capability uh, for its use in military applications, and with AI ended in the West, but advancing in the alliance of Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, that could spell a true military disaster for the good guys. Uh, so a proposal was made to form a new alliance, basically of countries pledged uh, to ban AI, but protecting each other if ever attacked by one of these four countries that refuse to ban AI.
And this, led to another interesting poll that asked the question, should anti-AI countries use nuclear weapons to stop an attack by Russia, China, and their allies using AI? In other words, if the Western nations were to say no more AI and Russia and China were to keep heading down that path. And the poll data was pretty interesting. It reinforces the point that AI is not just another new job eliminating process improving technology, but could be one of the most destructive, if not the most destructive and deadly technology to date. Uh, 50% of people answered the poll question, are nuclear weapons the ideal counter to nations who employ AI? Yes, far better to yield a destructive power that humans can control than risk obliteration by AI. 34% no better for the US and other countries to continue AI development and mount AI attacks against China and Russia if they abuse AI. And finally, 16% said no, there's never any excuse to use nuclear weapons.
So I'm going to address a personal survival topic and just very quickly explain a get home bag as opposed to a bug out bag. The get home bag or get home safe bag, that basically is to get you from, let's say, your place of work back to your home where you can link up with your family members in a very, the most time efficient manner that you can safely. So you have a small amount of survival or what I would say emergency items, with you. So that get home bag is just to get you to your home where you can link up with your family. Bug out bag, we're talking more long term. Uh, I'm not talking months where you're out living in the woods, but a bug out bag is more where you may be away from your home for more than a few days, up to 2 or 3 weeks. Take, for instance, a wildfire and you have to leave your residence until the area is safe. So that's basically the difference between a get home bag, get me back to my home where I can link up with my family, and a bug out bag. Now, this leads to a question that came up, another survival topic. Uh, Also, in this scenario, the difference between a 223 and a 556 round of ammunition. Many people regard these as interchangeable, and you can likely use a more powerful 5.56 round in a rifle in an AR platform that's basically for a 223 round. You're basically taking a risk when you do that because the 5.56 round, it has more pressure with it and more power. So you're going to create some damage to your 223 rifle. And so those rounds are not identical. They're different. There's more pressure with the 5.56 round. Uh, so if you use that 5.56 round in the 223 platform, you're going to damage that weapon. And you could be looking at it at the very least a malfunction in your 223 when you need it the most, or it could actually maybe blow up in your face. So at Fortitude Ranch, and at the most survival communities that I know of, they urge their members to get a 5.56 capable weapon instead of just a 223. You can use the 223 and 5.56 weapon, but you can't use it the other way. A 5.56 and a 223 platform.
These poll questions and thought experiments are one of my favorite parts of the scenarios. And probably my favorite one this go round was the scenario where a relative comes to you and asks you about a firearm or the best firearm they can get their hands on to protect from home invasion and looting and that kinds of things. And this was a polled question. And the 12 gauge semi automatic shotgun was 29% of respondents' answer. Not too far behind at 27% was a 12 gauge pump shotgun, and the shotguns clearly took the cake for home defense as usual. And right behind that, surprisingly to me, was the 24% or almost a quarter said the AR-15 platform. Another maybe even more fun than choosing your home defense weapon was we threw in a little question about what is the best prepper movie of all time or your choice, created there. And these ones we throw in from time to time and they're good fun. I chose The Road personally.
Okay. So uh, basically, we had our Academy Awards of the Prepper movies, and I'm just going to give you the short version of the top three. So, in third place was any Mad Max movie, which they're quite awesome to watch, really, by a
Yeah.
little known actor at that time, Mel Gibson. Okay. So, And by the way, that was the top grossing Australian film during that time. The Mad Max movies, the people in Australia loved them. Number two, The Book of Eli with Denzel Washington and Gary Oldman, which I think is a really good movie. It's a lot of fun to watch. But basically, the world is a wasteland, and you have this warrior, Eli, played by Denzel. I'll give you that much. And he's got the book, which is basically the hope for humanity. And of course, Gary Oldman wants that book. And that's as far as I'm going to go with the storyline. You'll have to figure it out from there. And now for the number one prepper movie by the prepper community and people who are playing the collapse survivor app, we The Postman, starring Kevin Costner. Basically, again, the world has collapsed. Kevin Costner puts together and begins the postal mail service again. Okay, young people may not remember really what the postal service was all about, but he starts a postal mail service that basically takes care of getting messages to small communities that are still surviving. And of course, we always have that large terrorist marauder group, terrorizing these communities. And the movie goes from there. But the number one movie was The Postman with Kevin Costner. All right. So what I want to do here is just remind you that the Collapse Survivor app on your phone, even if you don't want to play the simulation, have the app on your phone because it could potentially give you life-saving threat alerts. The sooner you get an alert for something, the more time you have to react, put your thoughts together. So that Collapse Survivor app on your phone is really important. We've already put some alerts out. One good example was the big solar flare that occurred a few months back, which potentially could have taken down parts of or all the electric grid. There are other disasters and things that could come in there. The app basically costs $10 a year. We encourage you and all your friends to have this app on your phone because, again, the more time you have from an alert, the more time you have possibly that could save your life. And whether you use the training simulations or not, or the other preparedness features, the threat alerts definitely can save your life.
So we'll be sending out the lessons learned report to those who played the live simulation. If you're playing it later, then you can get it in our preparedness knowledge base. It's a great index database of all important preparedness and survival topics, curated by survival experts, great how-to information, no advertisements, and that's available at collapsesurvivor.com. As for me, I'm James Walton with the Collapse Survivor app and the Prepper Broadcasting Network. Remember, don't despair, prepare.
Love it. Thanks, James. And this is Larry. I'm signing off. Strength and honor, and keep on prepping.